Where are you going, Holmes? Have you been invited somewhere?
We have been invited, Watson.
We have. Where to?
To the Baker Street Irregulars' annual dinner. They sent us an invitation. It is on the table.
A dinner? How could those street urchins afford anything like that? I can't understand your interest in them, Holmes. They're dirty. They wouldn't hesitate to steal your wallet.
Watson, you should be excited. It is a secret dinner. Its location changes every year. Read the menu. Sounds mouth-watering.
All right. We, the secret police of Baker Street, invite you, Sherlock Holmes, and Doc. Menu. Entree. Frozen rat heads.
Not at all. Pray continue.
Main course. Sow Annie Nutcracker's Way. Sounds disgusting, Holmes. Hedgehog goulash. Street turnips in homemade juice. And it goes on.
I can hear them on the stairs now.
Oh, we can't go there. We can't eat that.
Watson, you'll hurt the feelings of those poor children. We have to go.
Oh, Mr. Holmes.
It is fine, Mrs. Hudson.
Mr. Holmes!
Wiggins, Dr. Watson is getting ready. He will be delighted to join us. You don't look well, my young man. Is there something wrong? Don't tell me the dinner is cancelled.
Mr. Holmes, it's my brother Leighton. He's in a prison cell. They say he's killed 2 men. You have to help us, Mr. Holmes, because I know he didn't do it.
Where is he now?
From what I've heard, they took him to the yard, and they gave him a good beating already. You know what they're like. They'll hang him. They won't look any further.
Holmes, we have to help him.
Well, and forget about the dinner. Wiggins, I'll take the case.
You're fantastic, Mr. Holmes. I'll be waiting for you at the crime scene. You'll be there, right? It's on Half Moon Street in Whitechapel.
Very well.
Please, gentlemen, leave the scene now. Oh, Mr. Holmes, is that you?
Good evening, Constable...
Constable Marrow. I was here with Inspector Aberline during the Ripper case, Mr. Holmes, back in '88. But then this is nothing like that case. With this one, we've got the murderer, the weapon, and the statements, which speak for themselves.
Of course, Marrow. But you know that appearances can sometimes be deceiving. Who were the victims?
The 2 men here, both shot. The stab fellow was Brian Vercotti, a well-known ruffian. The other, Kenneth Butler, a jeweller by trade.
You spoke of statements. You have witnesses?
Well, I was there, so I gave my own statement. And then there were 2 other witnesses who said they saw the killer Chapman. Mr. Turner, a gentleman who lives in that flat over there. And Polly Powell, a flower seller, who was over at the far side of the street.
So, Constable Marrow, I should be delighted to hear your testimony.
I was standing at the north side of Half Moon.
But you would have been unable to observe this part of the street, where we are standing now.
That is correct. But I saw the 2 victims slowly enter Half Moon Street, and then shortly after, the fireworks started. A few minutes after that, the fellow Chapman rushed towards me and ran into Half Moon Street.
Please continue.
I didn't pay attention, but suddenly I heard a woman's cries and police whistles on the other side of Half Moon Street. I rushed over there and I saw the 2 dead bodies on the ground. When I reached Whitechapel Street, I saw Leighton Chapman. He'd been caught by 2 police constables.
Did you hear the shots?
I didn't hear any shots. The fireworks were all over the sky. They were so loud I couldn't hear anything else.
What were the fireworks in honour of, Constable?
Well, today's Queen Victoria's birthday, Mr. Holmes.
Ah, yes, I appear to have lost track of the days. It is May now, of course. Constable Marrow, what else caught your attention while you were running through Half Moon Street?
I saw nothing but rats, and I took the time to light every corner with my lamp.
Did you happen to look up at Mr. Turner's window when you were on Half Moon Street at that time?
Yes, I saw that the window was open, but no one was there. It was dark in the room.
Constable, your statements have been of great value to me. He tried to stop the bleeding with his hand. Death was not instant. The bullet penetrated his stomach, a dreadful wound. Brian Vercotti suffered greatly. What a terrible way to die. A tattoo from Westgate Prison. Vercotti must have done some time there. A piece of wood that has stuck between... This... The bullet struck his head. This is an ordinary key.
Mr. Holmes, did you see my brother at Scotland Yard? Is he all right?
Good evening,
I heard Constable Marrow reply to you as Mr. Holmes. Are you that detective?
Excellent. Could you tell us everything that you may have seen or heard?
I was already in bed.
Please.
I looked down and I saw 2...
Where exactly?
Well, near this body.
Did he notice you?
I don't think so. He rushed...
Mr. Turner, did...
No, I saw no one but that man. The murder...
Were the 2 shots you heard consecutive?
Yes, there was a very short pause between them, and they sounded different somehow. It seemed to me that the second shot was louder than the first.
That is an interesting comment. Mr. Turner, what were your actions after you stepped up to the window?
I was afraid that the man with a gun might return, so I stayed close to the window till I saw the policeman coming in the Half Moon from Whitechapel. Then I walked out to tell them everything I saw.
You have helped us a great deal, Mr. Turner.
It would be my pleasure to assist you with your investigation, Mr. Holmes.
Locked. Locked. Mrs. Powell?
What do you want?
My name is Sherlock Holmes. I'm assisting the police with their investigation of the crime that took place this evening.
Well, I've already gave my testimony, but very well.
Could you tell us everything?
Yes, but then he
And
he had then.
Mrs. Powell,
I'm not sure.
did you see anyone else?
No, sir, I did not.
My thanks to you, Mrs. Powell.
Mr. Holmes, whatever brings you here so late at night?
I'm interested in the case of young Leighton Chapman. He was arrested earlier this evening and accused of a...
I beg your pardon? That case is quite... Look, you are free to investigate, of course, Mr. Holmes. Chapman was arrested with...
Did you find...
a few per...
Thank you.
Mr. Holmes, what is the trouble with that lad? Isn't he...
These cigarettes are filled with cheap tobacco. A cheap watch, bought with his own money, no doubt. So this is the gun that Leighton was holding when he was caught by the police. It seems as though the shells... Two out of the 6 shells have been fired. please escort this suspect for interrogation. Good evening, Mr. Chapman.
Who are you? I've got nothing to say. It's all a mistake. My brother.
Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, blimey. All right, Mr. Holmes. I'll tell you everything.
Good.
I left my work, and I hurried up. I saw the first fireworks light up in the sky. I bumped into a constable on a corner before entering Half Moon. Then suddenly, what with all the firework flare, I saw two men. They were both lying flat in the middle of the street. I stopped where I was. I thought about turning back to the police, but as I was thinking of that, I saw a third person. He was leaning over the body that was furthest from me. The second I saw him, he raised his head and he stared at me. In a flash, I saw his gun, but he made a dash for it instead and he escaped through Whitechapel Street.
So you might still have had time to return to the constable.
I panicked. I didn't know what to do. Anyway, I approached the bodies just to see if there was... I saw that one had blood pumping out of his stomach. He was dying. He was holding a gun in his hand, though. I took it.
Interesting. Pray, continue.
I turned a corner, and I saw the man standing in the middle of the street. He seemed to be in some sort of panic. And then, Mr. Holmes, something strange happened. I told the police and they laughed at what I said, but I swear to you, my words are true. I started running towards him. But then I was blinded by a flash. It was so bright that I hardly saw anything for a good dozen seconds. But I kept running forward. As I arrived in Whitechapel, I heard a woman screaming. And then I was caught by the police. But there wasn't a trace of that man. Of course, then they found a gun and all that blood. I couldn't see the murderer escaping and all that mess.
A thrilling... Leighton, are you able to describe...
Well, I wasn't able to see his face at all. It was too dark, and he was too far away. I could see his silhouette.
And what about that?
Nothing so special. He was wearing a jacket. He was quite average in size and his weight.
I see. Was there anything else that struck you at the time?
No. But perhaps... It's strange, but I can't remember the sound of his footsteps as he was running away. Perhaps it was because of the fireworks or the surprise of me seeing him.
Leighton, I confess I am puzzled. Why should a young lad like you take a gun from the hands of a dead man and set off in pursuit of a probable killer?
I know. I keep wondering that, but at the time it was like a reflex. A criminal ought to be arrested, and he was armed.
You were willing to risk your life. That was a little foolish, unless...
No, Mr. Holmes. I was just being brave and stupid.
I'm sure that you were, but I believe that you may have recognized one of the victims, Brian Vercotti. You knew that gentleman well, did you not?
However could you know that?
You have a typical tattoo of the Westgate Brotherhood upon your hand. I observed exactly the same mark upon Mr. Vercotti. You came to know him from your sharing a past prison sentence. Am I correct, Mr. Chapman?
Oh, God. You're right, Mr. Holmes.
Would you tell me a little about...
We were convicted for a robbery. Once in prison, both of us joined one of these fraternities. During that year, we tried to help each other out, you know?
You were quite young then, I believe.
Yes, Mr. Holmes, we were. We'd only stolen a pound of meat. After we were released and when I saw what my little brother had become, I decided to work to...
And
He had a hard time. His sister had died in a Whitechapel dispensary while he was in prison. He had no family anymore.
so you lost...
Yes. And for around 2 years, I heard no news of him at all.
We shall see you soon, young man. Locked.
What's up with you, lad? What are you waiting for?
I'm waiting for my brother to be released.
Your brother?
The one that you caught, beat up and imprisoned.
Ah, the murderer.
He ain't killed no one, copper.
Watch your mouth, lad, else you'll be
I am unable to see any higher. I need to find something to lift my lamp. This should be useful. No. This is most definitely a bullet hole. Watson, there was a third shot fired in this street. Constable Marrow, I would like to make sure that there are no places in Half Moon's...
All right, mister.
Take your lamp and start walking.
Understood. I shouldn't look for Mr. Holmes here. He's hiding in Half Moon Street. No, this is not how I walked at the time of the crime. I was more attentive. Let's start over again. No, this... No, this is not how I walked at the time of the crime. I was more attentive. Let's start over again. No, this... I shouldn't look for Mr. Holmes here. He's hiding in Half Moon Street. No, I shouldn't look for Mr. Holmes here. He's hiding in Half Moon Street. I can see you very well, Mr. Holmes.
All right, Constable. Let's try again. I'll find another place to hide.
Here you are, Mr. Holmes.
All right, Constable. Let...
Mr. Holmes, it wasn't...
It is obvious now. No one could escape Constable Marrow's lamp while hiding in the street.
It would be my pleasure to assist you with your investigation, Mr. Holmes.
Mr. Turner, you have stated...
Oh, yes, Mr. Holmes. I stayed at my window until the policeman arrived to examine the dead bodies.
That is very interesting, Mr. Turner. Constable...
Well, I think Constable Marrow, we could have missed each other somehow. You understand what I mean?
Allow me to form my own theories, Mr. Turner.
Not at all, Mr. Holmes. Please, follow me.
Mr. Turner appears to live very modestly. Mr. Turner was roused from his bed by the sound of gunshots. The books on this shelf are in a mess. Perfect. So, Mr. Turner broke his stick when it became stuck between the cop... There are pieces of shredded... This kitchen knife is quite This kitchen knife...
Anything else you would like to know, Mr. Holmes?
So, that's the view Mr. Turner had when he opened the window. The dead body. Brian Vercott. Mr. Turner had a perfect view of the crime scene. He saw the body.
Anything else you would like to know, Mr. Holmes?
This fire is dying out. It was last tended to over an hour ago. The papers are almost entire. The papers were thrown into the fire just a short while ago. No, it didn't happen this way. No, it didn't happen this way. Hello, Toby. All you need now is a shawl and a mop cap, and you could be Mrs. Hudson. Hello.
Why are you looking at me all...
I'm just watching.
Pete?
Yes.
I...
Oh, no.
What?
It would be my...
I'll do anything to save my brother, Mr. Holmes.
So Mr. Turner used a book to hide an object that he found on Kenneth Butler's body. The question is, what did he find? I can see prints from... Well now, what a find! A precious jewel concealed inside a book. A bracelet with a Mr. Turner, how would it be possible for a man of advanced years...
Well, I'm able to move very quickly, despite my age. And when the situation requires it, Mr. Holmes. Well, I'm able to move very quickly, despite my age. And when the situation requires it, Mr. Holmes.
I highly doubt that. And what of everything else that you told us?
Mr. Holmes, I do assure you that the other things I said were most sincere.
Mr. Turner, you... This, Mr. Turner, does not look like anything that a poor man might possess. It is worth...
I can explain.
No, merely correct me if I am... But you also noticed a glittering object on the... You walked down and took the bracelet from the body of... That broke your walking stick. It caught fire. Constable Marrow was unable to see you in the window as you were climbing up the stairs on your way back to your flat. Upon...
Mr. Holmes, please don't send me to prison. I didn't do it. When I chanced upon the bracelet, I saw it as an opportunity to make a little money. I was dead.
You made a mistake by lying to me. But you are not a criminal. I believe that.
I'm always wondering what's on your mind, Holmes.